Looking for a good book? Don't know which page to turn to? Richard and Judy can help. Check out the book club exclusive to WHSmith.
Our next author says you shouldn't trust a woman who tells you her age.
I say you shouldn't trust a man who promises you the world.
Fair enough, let's move on. Age, Secrets and Lies, with a former FBI agent coming up. Her past is about to catch up with her.
The Richard and Judy book club exclusive to WHSmith. Richard and Judy, recommending great reads for you.
Ready? Let's go. Becky Masterman is our author on this download, so let's find out a bit more about our guest, who's based in Arizona.
My name is Becky Masterman, and the name of my book is Rage Against the Dying, from a Dylan Thomas poem. When my daughter was 12 years old, she wanted to audition for The Wizard of Oz, a children's play. That was 1993. And I auditioned too and got a small part as Auntie M, and that launched me. I knew there wasn't anything that I couldn't do then after being on stage, so I directed and I acted some more, and then I wrote plays, and then I wrote novels. And the fact is, nothing sold until Rage Against the Dying. So I've been writing for 20 years, a long time. And you know, I'd like to point out to anyone who's listening to this that I'm 62 years old, and you just have to keep living and keep trying. Why do I write? I think that part of me is kind of obsessive. And if I'm not doing something that engages my mind, I'm worrying about something like whether my husband is going to leave me for another woman. So instead of worrying about things like that, I channel my obsessions into a story. Then I stop brooding. And when I write a sentence, just one sentence, that I think no one has ever written before, there's this little spurt of dopamine, a feel-good chemical in my brain, and I'll wait as long as I have to before I get there again. I have a day job with a publisher. I acquire books in forensic science. So my days must be highly, highly structured. As a matter of fact, I've dubbed our home out here in Arizona Masterman Monastery. I sleep from 8:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. I work my day job mostly during the week, and I write all weekends when I'm working on a book. Sometimes I have a day off. It's a very structured life. And the thing is that people talk about writing or not writing, but I love a cartoon about James Thurber, the cartoonist and short story writer, who's standing staring at a cocktail party holding a glass of something in his hand, and his wife is standing next to him, and she says, "Thurber, stop writing." That's what the life is like. I went to a writers' conference, and the literary writer Richard Bosch, we expected him to give us all kinds of highfalutin advice about writing, and all he said was, "Thrill me." Now that's those two words, you could take them apart. Every book should thrill us, whether it's about incestuous cannibalism or whether it's about a woman deciding to buy the flowers for her dinner party. But it's the second word that is the most important to me, because I write the first version for myself. The second version is for the reader. I'm so honored and humbled that someone would give me their time to read my book, and I want to make it worth their while.
I really love this book.
I think it's your favourite, wasn't it?
One of them. I'm going to be very diplomatic here. It was one of them. It's a debut novel for Becky Masterman.
She's no spring chicken.
No, I mean, like her heroine. I mean, Becky herself, as she reveals very bravely in our interview, says that she's 62 and it's her debut novel. So she actually says it's never too late, you know. get on with it. If you think you've got a story, do it. Her heroine, Bridget Quinn, this retired FBI agent, is 52. Now, that is unusual for a heroine in a book, especially in this kind of genre, which is a thriller.
But it makes it so interesting. It makes it real.
It makes it really interesting. But mostly, this genre is mostly men, and if it's women, they're usually young and gorgeous. So the fact that Becky is 52, has fallen in love properly for, I think, only the second time in her life, and has finally got married to her ideal husband, completely out of the FBI. Put all that behind her, because she has a very, very gory past in her role as an agent investigating murder, serial killers, and it somehow comes back to her and lands almost literally in her back garden, and she has to get involved again. But it's a really clever book and very witty, as well as being very gory.
But you quite rightly say that it's unusual for a woman of her age to have a debut hit like this book is, and hopefully because it's going to be in the book club, it is in the book club, it'll be an even bigger hit. But, you're not a spring chicken.
Thank you very much. I was wondering when you were going to raise
Well, I was just going to say, and yet you wrote your first novel. It came out last year and it was a bestseller.
When I was 33.
When you were 33, yes. And I'm looking forward to your 40th. No, but seriously, I mean, you've shown that it's not too late.
No, of course it's not too late.
You can follow your dreams at any age, I think.
It's also really interesting that when we actually listen to Becky and hear her voice, she sounds so similar to her main character,
wry,
Bridget
funny.
Quinn. Yeah, wry and funny and sort of quite unsentimental, but, and I just love the character. I noticed that an awful lot of people who've enjoyed the book, reviewers, say they love Becky Masterman's voice, and I've always wondered what that meant when people say, I love this author's voice, but there's something about the way she, the author, comes through her characters.
And there's something uniquely American about her.
Yeah.
She's a real American, and that's what comes through, both in the interview that we heard there
also,
and in her writing.
The other thing is that Becky works, when she's not writing, she works in a forensic science publishing company, which means, presumably, that she has to read quite a lot of gruesome detail about corpses, and God knows what, and my God, does that come through in this book. Bits of it, I mean, the actual serial murders in this book are very, very unpleasant. Serial murders of young women involves not just rape, but mummification. And she obviously knows her stuff, and it's not very nice stuff, but it makes a brilliant book.
Rage Against the Dying, Becky Masterman.
It's about a woman who has spent her whole life trying to protect the world through working undercover for the FBI. Now, finally, at the age of 59, she has retired from the FBI under something of a cloud and is trying to be a part of the world she always tried to protect. So she has gifts. She's capable of, like I said, taking down a mugger, but she doesn't know how to cook. And she's trying to be a wife without really knowing what a wife is or how she should behave. And in the midst of that, a case from her past, the one case she failed to solve, to catch this serial killer who also killed her protege, that comes back into play when a person confesses to the crimes. And there's lots of action and shooting and fighting and sex and all that stuff.
Well, we note you work in a forensic science publishing house, and this has obviously inspired your debut novel, which is at times gruesome in its details of rape, murder, mummification and necrophilia. When you were writing, did you ever find yourself unable to sleep at night?
Actually, what's in the book isn't as bad as what I've encountered in my job. When I go to a medical examiner's conference and I see the posters or I read cases from my author's practical homicide investigation book, the reality is so much worse than what you'll ever see in CSI or in a mystery novel. So, yeah, the short answer is yes, I could sleep quite easily.
What's really interesting, and I suppose quite compelling really, and original, is to have your protagonist as a feisty 50-something woman. Did you kind of see a gap in the market there?
Oh, yeah. When I decided to write a mystery, I guess 6 or 7 years ago now, it's been in the works that long, I started to read a bunch, and I thought, well, all of these female characters are, kick-ass dames, and they're wearing their stiletto heels and running around. And I thought, what fun it would be to have someone who wasn't that, but wasn't a Miss Marple either, who would bring knitting into her stories, or cats. What about a woman who was older, but yet still very vibrant? In short, most of the boomer generation.
Obvious question, for which I apologise, but did you base this story on any particular serial killer case or cases?
No. I might have mentioned some that I found in my research, like the sleeping killer or something like that. But much of what I wrote was made up. As a matter of fact, I have an author who specializes in paraphilia investigation. That's simply things that arouse people. And he's in India, and I contacted him and said, Anil, I want to have a guy who is aroused by mummies. What do you call that? I see you have a list of 500 paraphilias, but it's not on the list. And he responded, oh, I've never thought of that one. Well, I'll have to get back to you. So he named a paraphilia in my honor, mumiophilia. That's how different it is. Yeah.
So here we are. Here you are, of a lady of a certain age, with a huge success. What about the second one? Is that going to be a thriller? And crucially, will Bridget Quinn be in it? Yes, the second book is a thriller. Bridget Quinn is the protagonist. The other one had to do with an old case of hers. The second one is more personal. She brings her niece into the house after her sister-in-law dies. In the first book, she married, so she found out what it was like being a wife. In the second book, she makes a good friend. So now she's finding out what it's like to be a friend. And in the midst of this, some things start happening that do not bode well for Bridget.
Get the books online or in-store from WHSmith for lots of exclusive bonus content. Or if you have an e-reader, download the ebooks today from WHSmith or on the free Kobo app.
As always, we want to thank you for all the comments you've been posting about the books on Twitter and Facebook. It's great for us to know what you really think about the books we choose for our WHSmith collections.
My name is Lena. Books I like reading are by Harlan Coben. There's a lot of mystery in them, and they are quite similar, but each one is sort of individual. And when you think you've figured out who's done what, and it's never that, and then you read another chapter, and then something else happens, and you think, oh no, it can't be them, and then you do another one, and by the time you get to the end, then you get to know what's supposed to have happened, and who's done what and where, and you think, that's not who I thought he was. You can't put them down.
My name is Jackie Jones. I've recently read Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling, and I was pleasantly surprised, really enjoyed it. The characters were very interesting, I thought, and the story was very good. I enjoyed the whole storyline of it. It was quite sad. You sort of knew that bad things were going to happen in the end, and they did, but it was life.
The book I really love, which I've read 4 times and I've cried each time, is called The Book Thief. And it's an amazing book. I think it's amazing because of the perspective it's written from, because it's actually written by death in World War II. And it's written from the side, I suppose, if you like, of the Germans, which makes a change. And the characters presented in the book are very complex but very ordinary at the same time.
Well, that's it for the spring collection of the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusive to WHSmith as always. If you've missed any of it, here's a reminder of what you can find on the website.
The children were driven in wagons through the ghetto gate. Some of them were dressed in their fanciest clothing, whatever was left of it at this point.
From the tops of buses, you could see how in other parts of town the bomb sites had been transformed by clumps of fireweed, willow herb and ragwort.
I've been in the witness box 2 days now, and I'm tired, really tired.
My final non-internet option was speed dating, an approach I had not previously tried. The venue was a function...
The statistics gave us such comfort. Knowledge is power after all. We knew we had a 1 in 2 million chance of being killed by a tornado, a 1 in 310,000 chance of dying in a plane crash, and a 1 in 500,000 chance of being killed by an asteroid hitting Earth.
Vi and I weren't beautiful. We had our father's long, narrow nose, but we could certainly be pretty, because we also had our mother's large blue eyes and light hair.
And over it all, icy starlight shone. It shone on the slate roofs and the flagged yard and the necessary house and the shrubbery and the little wilderness off to the side of the lawn.
I'm still gifted at disappearing into whatever environment I encounter, fading into the background, happy to succeed at what other women my age dread.
All our recommendations are waiting for you to try, and don't forget, if you buy the books from WHSmith, there's a little bit more content at the back.
Until next time, keep the conversation going on social media and your recommendations to WHSmith. Bye for now.
Fill your bookshelves with our recommended reads in the Richard and Judy collection, exclusive to WHSmith. And tell us what you've been reading too.